fourth video playing with Facebook Live and YouTube at the same time, and I'm getting the good. I want to know, make sure you guys can hear me and see me okay. Hope you're doing well. This is Wholesaling Lease Options made simple, made easy. And I'm just looking here to make sure you guys are getting this. Again, hey guys, how you doing? Joe McCall here. I think this is working. I've been messing with this thing for the last half hour. So, oh, it's flashing that it's not. What's going on? How are you guys doing? Listen, if you are watching this, let me know. I'm looking at my Facebook page right now. I'm broadcasting this on, looks like it's working. All right, I'm broadcasting this on Facebook and YouTube. I'm going to be talking in this series. I'm continuing this. This is my fourth video, I believe. Talking about lease options, talking about how easy it is to wholesale lease options. And I have a mind map that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. And if you want this mind map, you can text the words. Let's see if I can get this thing to work here. You can text the letters WLO to 313131. Do you see the screen just changed there? Isn't that cool? You can text the letters WLO to 313131 to get a copy of this mind map. And let's just dive in right now. Is that okay? I'm going to shrink my window here and make it a lot smaller. Let's make it a little bigger. I'm trying to figure out like that. So if you want this mind map, again, text the letters WLO for wholesaling lease options to 313131 and I'll get it to you, okay? So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. First day we talked about what is wholesaling lease options. The second one we talked about the benefits of lease option deals. And today I'm going to talk about the basic steps of wholesaling a lease option deal, okay? Make sure you can see this. The first step is really simple. You got to find a seller, right? You got to find a seller. Let me open this up. And there's a lot of things that are important to understand about this. Obviously, number one, it's all about marketing. We're not in the real estate business. We're not in the lease option business. We're in the marketing business. So you always got to be marketing. Most all of the sellers you need are already in Craigslist and Zillow. And how much does it cost to target sellers on Craigslist and Zillow? And as I go through this series, through this mind map, I'm going to be showing you different techniques and different tools that I use where I don't even actually do the marketing. My virtual assistant does. So you can also get leads from other wholesalers. Leads that your other wholesalers will throw away. When you're looking for sellers, you only want to look for nice homes in nice areas, okay? And it's okay, guess what? It's okay if the house doesn't have a lot of equity. That's all right. Maybe they're even upside down. That's okay too. A lot of these sellers have very few choices left, right? Many times they want to sell a house right now but can't. They can't afford a realtor commission. They don't want to be a landlord. But here's the cool thing. They only need to be semi-motivated. Most traditional wholesaling that you go and you study, you've got to be like super... the seller's got to be super motivated. And generally, it's a house in an area that where the house needs a lot of work. And I like just dealing with nice houses, pretty houses. And with lease options, you don't want to do lease options on really bad houses in bad neighborhoods, okay? And they don't have to have a lot of equity. It seems like all the wholesalers out there are competing for the deals that need a lot of work, that have a lot of equity, and the sellers are super motivated and willing to drop their price to 60, 70 cents on the dollar. So I like working with nicer homes. They don't need as much equity. The seller doesn't need to be super motivated where they're just willing to give away all their equity. So when you find a good seller, you just present the benefits of a seller to the seller of a lease option in the form of an offer. So I'm not really selling anything. I'm the buyer of this house. I'm looking for a property that I can lease option, add to my portfolio. And so basically, I just make an offer. And when I'm talking to the seller, and I'll talk about the questions you can ask sellers in a future mind map episode here, but I'm just making an offer to lease purchase their house, okay? And basically, I want to find out what they need to walk away with and what they want in monthly rent, and that's my offer, and I send them an offer in the mail. Simple as that. So once the seller says, yeah, I want to do a lease option, the next step is to get them to sign an agreement, obviously, right? So I call it my short offer form. It's a one-page contract. And this lease option agreement gives me the right to sell that contract or assign that contract to another tenant buyer. I enter in, it's the A to B. I am the tenant buyer. I'm the B. the seller is the A to B. Okay, when I find another tenant buyer, C, I'm going to assign my contract to that tenant buyer. And I'll talk about all of that, how that works later on. Sometimes I make different offers to a seller. And if the numbers are good, the beautiful thing about lease options are if the numbers are good, I can get great cash flow. I can get some cash now, good cash flow of $300 to $400 a month for 3 to 5 years, and a large chunk of equity at the back end. Cash now, cash flow, and cash later. And so one of the great things about sandwich lease options is I can control really, really valuable property without actually owning it. I don't have to get a mortgage. I don't have to use any of my own credit or cash. For maybe $10 down, I can control a property on a lease option. And so if the numbers work, if there's equity and there's cash flow, I'd rather stay in the middle and make a lot more money. If the numbers don't work, if there's not enough equity and no cash flow, then I'm going to do a wholesale lease option deal. So basically when I'm making a sandwich lease option offer, my price, I want at least 15% equity. I'm going to subtract a little bit for repairs, but I'm not going to do the repairs. Sometimes I tell the seller, listen, if I could get you the same equity, perfect tenant program, and I'm going to be getting into this a lot more detail later, but the perfect tenant program is I'll be the tenant, I'll take care of all the maintenance and repairs, and I'll just rent the house from you. I'll make sure the rent is paid every month, whether it's vacant or not. But it needs to have at least 15% equity. And for the rent, I want at least $300 to $400 a month in cash flow. It kind of depends on the price of the home. And for the term, I want to have at least 5 years. Okay. Now for a wholesale lease option deal, it's pretty simple. I give the seller whatever price they want. Okay. Then I bump the price up a little bit to cover my assignment fee or my profit. And buyer's closing cost, that might be rent credits. If you want to do rent credits, you don't have to. Okay. So for the rent, whatever the seller needs in rent, as long as it's at or below the market value of rent. So if the rents in this neighborhood are $1,800 a month and the seller wants to have $2,200 a month, it's just probably not going to work. All right. And then I use a third-party escrow company to collect the rents and to pay the mortgage every month. So all of the rent goes to the seller, but through my escrow company. Okay. After the mortgage gets paid. And I'll talk more about that later. On a wholesaling lease option deal, it's usually 1 to 2 years. And if the property is slightly underwater, I will do a longer lease option term, and I'll usually set the option price to be whatever the loan balance is in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. Does that make sense? Okay, so the two different types of lease option deals are sandwich lease options where I stay in the middle, and a wholesaling lease option where I'm just going to flip it. So the sandwich lease option deal, I got to have equity and I need to have cash flow because I'm staying in the middle. If it's a lease option flip, a wholesaling lease option deal, it doesn't matter what price the seller wants, I can get it for them, pretty much. Okay, so the next step is once you get the property under contract, you have to advertise for a tenant buyer. And again, don't forget, if you're just joining and watching this video, if you want this mind map, you can have it. Just text the letters WLO to 313131. So when you're advertising for a tenant buyer, you want to find somebody who wants to buy a house but just can't right now. Okay, really, really important. They have a realistic chance of getting a mortgage in 1 or 2 years. I'm going to write this down here. They have a realistic chance to get a mortgage in 1 to 2 years. How do you find that out? Well, you get a mortgage broker to tell you. Okay, it's somebody that just doesn't want to rent and then throw away their money every single month. Okay, they want to be a buyer. They have a homeowner's mentality, and there's a lot of buyers like that. So for marketing, when I get a lease option house, and again, I'm going to talk a lot about the marketing real soon in a mind map, but there's really, you just got to take a lot of pictures, some good video, advertise the house on Craigslist, Zillow, and signs. Put a sign in the yard, put some signs in the neighborhood, and if you do that stuff, if you don't find a good tenant buyer in 4 weeks, in a month, 2 max, then you're doing something really, really wrong. There's only 2 reasons why a house doesn't sell. It's overpriced, or you're not putting it in front of the right people. And if you do these things right here that I'm talking about, then it's in front of the right people. Okay, so now you found a seller. The seller signed your 1-page short offer form. You start advertising the property for a tenant buyer. Once you find a good tenant buyer, you're going to assign the paperwork to that tenant buyer. Okay, and I have an attorney that does all of my deals in all 50 states, and my students can use my attorney. There's some more paperwork involved. You need to have a separate lease, a separate option agreement, and then an assignment agreement. And then there's things like seller's disclosure statements that you need and lead-based paint and stuff like that. My attorney will help you with that, all right? Then it becomes, once you assign and sell that agreement, it becomes an agreement between the seller and the tenant buyer. Okay, I'm assigning all responsibility and liability. If this is a wholesaling lease option deal, if I'm going to be out of the deal, I'm assigning the contract to the tenant buyer, and I'm done. I'm out. I don't have any more liability. I'm completely removed. I'm not responsible for making the mortgage payments. I'm not responsible for making any repairs. Does that make sense? Obviously, it's different if I'm staying in the middle, but most of the time, the numbers don't work, and so I'm just selling all of my interest in that original contract to the tenant buyer, and I'm out of a deal. Then the next step is you profit. I keep the option deposit as my assignment fee, Some of you are wondering, well, how can they get that money back as part of their future down payment? I'm not making any guarantees that they can get it back as their future down payment, but they can get it credited back to the purchase of the home, either a price reduction or something like that. And again, you got to make sure you're working with the right escrow company, the right mortgage broker, and I have mortgage brokers and the escrow companies in my course that will do all that for you. But anyway, so usually the assignment fee is about $5,000 or more, 3% of the price of the home. It varies depending on which part of the country you're in. Sometimes you want to share some of that with the seller just to make the deal happen, maybe give the seller 1 month's rent. But here's the cool thing, the really, really cool thing. You can actually create notes for the difference. So if you're trying to get 10 grand down on a house and you find a good tenant buyer that can afford the house and has a realistic shot of getting a mortgage in 1 or 2 years, you're trying to get 10, but they only have 7 maybe, well, you can create a note for the difference. And note 12 notes paying you $200, $300 a month. You're looking at, I don't know, $3,600 a month eventually coming in from these notes. So notes are a great source of income, and it's way better to get that kind of a $200 a month cash flow from a note than it is from actually owning a rental property and all of the hassle. Want more information, you can watch my webinar. I have a free webinar right now you can go to at WLOwebinar.com, WLOwebinar.com. If you want some personal coaching with me, book a call at coachjoe.net. Talk to somebody on my team, see if you're a good fit. If you like what you have to say, then let's work together, okay? It's a great group. I don't want to go into all the details about it, but you're going to love it. If you want to join my private Lease Options Facebook group, there's a link for it right there. If you just go to Facebook and do a search for Wholesaling Lease Options group, you should see it. I have 2 different groups in there. One's closed, but don't join the one that only has like 30 people in it. The Wholesaling Lease Options group, the main one, has like a lot of people in it. So if in the mind map too, there's a link, you can join it right there. So stick around. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these videos. Again, if you please type them in the comments box, whether you're on Facebook or on my blog or on YouTube, wherever you're watching this video, type in any questions you have in the comment box, and I'll do my best to get at them, okay? Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.